Hello guys and welcome to another video. My name's Mark, I'm an entrepreneur and property investor, and today's video is the first video that I'm recording since unfortunately myself and Nick decided to part ways. So this is a solo effort. I hope you appreciate that. I hope it all looks good. I hope the framing looks good and the editing's good at the end of it. But guys, if you appreciate all the effort that I go through to bring all of this information as transparent as I possibly can, if you could possibly give this video a big like, it really does help me out with the algorithm. And if you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing. Now, what I'm going to do today, guys, is go through the property that I showed you last week on Friday, my French holiday home, and how we're turning it into a service accommodation. Because for me, I think the figures are the one bit I wasn't able to go into as much detail as I really would have liked to last week. And that's because I was away, I didn't have a whiteboard, I wasn't able to write it all down, think through things, work out exactly how much we had spent. And since then, I've also got a valuation back from an agent, which really helps me out painting the full picture on this property. But I think I have to preface it first of all with the fact that we bought this a long time ago. So the purchase price was only £80,000. It was £40,000 for the farmhouse, £40,000 for the bungalow, and we bought it in cash, so there is no mortgage outstanding on this. Now the renovation, only the farmhouse side needed renovating. The bungalow was pretty much a new build at the time we bought it. So the farmhouse cost us about £25,000. I've done all of this in pounds, not euros, and I'll do the rentals in pounds, not euros, but understand that it's probably more in euros than it is in pounds. But I want to keep it relevant to my audience, who are predominantly UK based. So £25,000 for the reno. We had furniture. As you can see, it's a big 7-bedroom property. About £10,000 we spent on furniture. And then fees, because we had notaires, we were doing things in a different language. We probably spent about £5,000 on solicitors, or notaires as they're called over in France, and all the fees that went with buying the property. So I've included those, and that brings us into the property for about £120,000. Now, today, it's worth about £180,000. Now, this was based on an agent locally in the town who said to me, if you wanted to sell it, I showed him some pictures, I went through the details with him. He said, look, if you wanted to sell it and you wanted to sell it fairly quickly, around 180, well, he said about 210,000 euros. It could easily, though, he said, stay on the market a bit long and you might want to just reduce that down. He said 150,000, it'll be gone instantly. So if you want to look it up, if you want to have a look on Rightmove at overseas properties and get an idea for the area, it's called Pré-en-Pail, or Pré-en-Pail, which is the local village. Now, it's in a hamlet outside of that, but that's the closest local village, if you like. It's about 3 kilometers away from that, in the way of Bagnon-de-Laune. So if you follow the road down towards Bagnon, it's down that way. Now, in terms of its rentability, now, as I said previously, before I left on the last video, we have secured our first booking at £250 a night, for 10 nights over the Christmas period. Absolutely fantastic. I expect the calendar to start to fill up over the coming weeks and us to get a fairly good return on investment. So if we look at 250 a night and we work it out on a few different occupancy rates, I think that's sensible. So if we look at maybe 50% as a worst case, and we do a 70% as a best case, understanding that Guy, the chap that's managing this property for us, he's currently got 2 sheets and they're renting out about 70 to 80% occupancy. So I think both of these are fairly realistic. 50% worst case, 70% a good case, and I think we can work out exactly what we're going to be looking at in both those instances. Let me grab my calculator and work this out. Trusty phone. Okay, so Apple has done me the favour and we've worked out roughly what our top lines would be. So if we achieve 50% occupancy at £250 a night, we're looking at £46,000 a year. If we do achieve 70%, it'll be 64,000. Both really good figures. If we're able to do the renovations, and I think if you remember last week when I went through the video, I talked about putting a games room in, potentially a hot tub, being able to push that rent per night up. If we were able to push it up to 350, we'd get 64k at 50% and 89k at 70%. So we're approaching £100,000 a year in this instance. Now these are just our top line figures. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our top line on the 250 and the 64 and work out roughly what I think that'll be in terms of profit, and then I should be able to give ourselves a kind of ROI, a return on investment, based on the money that we've got in this deal. Now, in terms of getting a mortgage on it and getting some of this money out, it's not going to be feasible. As I said in the previous video, I own this with my mum. It was bought the bungalow side because my dad had MS and was going to be adapted to his his needs. Unfortunately, he passed away a couple of years ago. My mum is not open to the option of mortgaging it. I don't want to title split it. I think for the fact that I've got 40, 50k stuck in there, it's not a big problem for me. So I'm just going to look to how I can make this into a little mini cash cow and deliver as much money to me as I possibly can. So let's have a look at the figures, and we'll also have a look at some properties, and I'll tell you about some other properties in France if this is something you want to replicate, because I know that some people on this channel will be looking at this going, well, I wouldn't mind owning a little holiday home in France. And you can pick up 2 beds in this sort of area, in the Mayenne and the Loire Valley, round towards Le Mans. You can pick up little 2-bedroom cottages detached for under £50,000. And that's what basically Guy has done. And he's renting those out for about £100 a night, generating a net income of about 20 grand a year. It's about 40% return on investment, really, really strong. But at the same time, there is this risk where you're dealing with another country. You may not be able to get mortgages. There's lots and lots of other things, and that's why the return is high, right? Because capitalism always does this. It gives a good return for a good risk, and it works both ways. Sometimes it goes well, sometimes it goes badly. And now I can see a converse universe where we set all this up and then Guy decides he doesn't want to do it anymore. Well, now I don't have a team in place to deal with the bookings. I don't have anybody on the ground who can do it. It's in the middle of rural France. I have no idea how I would be able to source somebody to do all this. Obviously, I would solve that problem, but the return is great because the challenges are great. So let's have a look at what the bottom line would be once it all comes out in the wash, and I'll come back to you with that now. Well, you know what? I'm starting to do this, and I'm starting to work out straight away there's going to be a quick and easy way for us to look at this. If you can look, taxes, there's 2 different taxes. There's one for the local mayor and there's one for the national, and that's about £1,000 a year for the 2 properties. Guy is going to be 25%, Booking.com or Airbnb between 12 and 15%. The running costs, i.e. the electricity, the gas, all that sort of stuff, is about 10%. So when we start looking at all of this, it's going to be about 50-50. About half of it's going to go on costs, and about half of it is going to be profit. And that's about the same in the UK. When you do service accommodation in the UK, about half of your top line is profit, about half goes to cost. So it's not dissimilar to in the UK. So let's have a look at what that would come out as. So as you know, 46,000, that would be 23k profit if we managed to do that. And 64 would be 32k. And here it would be 32k. 89 would be 44.5k. So let's take some of these and work out roughly what they would be as a return on investment, cash on cash. So if we achieved our worst case scenario, 23,000 divided by 120,000, that'd be 20% return on investment, just under 20%. 20%. And if we achieve a much greater return on investment of 70%, we're going to be looking at what, 32,000 divided by 120,000, be 26% ROI. 26% ROI. And a lot of that is owing to the fact that I don't have a mortgage on this. This is an unleveraged asset. So the return on investment you would expect to be lower because I haven't managed to reduce the amount of money I got stuck in there. Now, if I was able to refinance, let's say, for example, the whole amount out, because I believe 120k of 180k is going to be roughly the right amount, 120,000 divided by 180,000. Yeah, I mean, 66% LTV that would be. So I would be able to refinance essentially almost the whole chunk out. So then the ROI would be infinite or ridiculous when you start looking at it. That said, as I said, because of the way that this house was bought, because of the way it's structured, that's not really possible. But I still think these numbers are absolutely fantastic. You're looking at an average salary, above average salary on one property investment if I'm able to achieve 70% return on investment. Now, as I said in my previous video, any profits I make will be split with my mum. Any issues that we have will also be split with my mum. I've made that sort of deal with her and that assumption. We're also going to contact the MS Society and other places to see if anybody who has a similar condition as my dad would like to use the property when it's not being rented out in order to be able to provide a little bit back. My dad would have loved that, so I think that's a really nice thing to do. But from a commercial standpoint and from a commercial entity, I think these figures really do stack up well. So guys, let me know down in the comments what your thoughts on this video are and what your thoughts of service accommodation abroad is. Would you consider it? Is it something that you would like to do? What would hold you back? Let me know in the comments. I'll reply to every single one. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers, guys. And that is video 1 done.